if we stay in a marriage that we are unhappy and unsatisfied in, where we argue with our spouse, what can that teach your child? Because yes, divorce has its negative effects, but so does staying in an unhappy marriage. That can teach your child that to love means to suffer.
Thank you very much for being today here with us. What we're going to do, we are going to listen to Tena, who is going to explain a few things about how to have a child-friendly divorce. There are many challenges in when we're going through a divorce, and of course, it's already difficult, it's already hard when we're going through a divorce and we have to face all the different changes happening at that time, let alone when we also have to take care of the little people in family who try to make sense of what is happening. Thank you very much for being here today. I'm Vasia Sarandopoulou, I'm a psychologist. I have been organizing divorce support groups for a long time already, or more than 6 years for anti-loneliness. And today we have invited our intern psychologist, Tena, who's going to explain a very specific aspect of a divorce, which is how to support our children when we're going through a divorce, how to hold them in a safe way and make this already difficult transition a little bit easier for them. So, Tena, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So as Vasia said, I am Tena and I'm an intern at AntiLoneliness, and I've previously worked with children whose parents are divorcing and parents who are going through divorce and were worried about how to support their children through this difficult period. And so I wanted to dedicate this presentation to this topic. So let's dive right in. Is this working? Yes. Okay. So what is divorce? So if you ask the Cambridge Dictionary, it's just an official or legal process to end a marriage. And yeah, that sounds very vague and very formal, but if you are going through divorce and if you've seen someone going through the divorce, you are aware that there's a lot of effort put into it, a lot of time, a lot of decision making, and that it is also a very emotional process. So it is not just a legal process, there's many more things going on behind it. So I would like to invite you to think about what feelings you associate with divorce. And since divorce is very complicated, it can have many different feelings. So you might be feeling angry at your partner that you're divorcing, but you might also feel some positive emotions, such as feelings of hope or the feelings of relief from leaving a marriage where you were not happy in. But when we think about divorce, there's usually this feeling of shame and also a feeling of guilt and thinking, oh, but this is going to be really intense for me, but also for my child. So maybe me and my partner should stay together for the kids. And what I want to tell you is, first and foremost, children are actually doing better in happy but separated families than when they are with parents who are together, but in a chronically unhappy marriage full of strife, full of arguments. So chronically unhappy marriages are actually not as healthy as a happy marriage with two divorced parents. And also, divorce is usually seen as something that affects our children in a negative way. However, most children actually manage to adjust to the divorce after it finishes. And after this period of adjustment, they manage to grow up without having some serious problems. And I also like to discuss this topic of, if we stay in a marriage that we are unhappy and unsatisfied in, where we argue with our spouse, what can that teach your child? Because yes, divorce has its negative effects, but so does staying in an unhappy marriage. That can teach your child that to love means to suffer. So it is okay to experience a lot of suffering, but they can also feel guilty for just existing because they feel like their parents are unhappy together and that they have to be together because they exist there. And that can be a lot of guilt for the child. So when we think about that, there's both positive and negative sides for both options. So what I would like to address is, in general, what the child's needs are. They are there all the time. So whether you are divorcing or whether you are in a stable or happy marriage, these needs are always there. So the child has a need for safety. Your child has a need for belonging and love. It has a need for play, and it has a need for routine. So that comes to what makes a divorce a good divorce for the child. A good divorce is a divorce where the child knows what is going on, where the divorce is revealed and explained to the child. The child knows that they are not the reason that the divorce is happening. The parents encourage their child to explore their emotions regarding divorce and to speak about them. A good divorce is also a divorce where the child is not pressured to make decisions. And it's a good divorce when we maximize our contact with the child, but that applies to both parents. So when both parents are spending a lot of time with the child and they're allowing the child to have pleasant memories, both of when the family was intact, but at the same time, they're allowing pleasant memories and creating new memories throughout the divorce period and after the divorce happened. And lastly, to stay consistent. So to stay consistent with your parenting. So the first question usually is, okay, we've decided to get a divorce. How and when to break the news to the child? Should we even do that in the first place? Because, you know, maybe they just don't need to know that. Why would they? That would just put more pressure onto them. However, I would like to remind you that children are not stupid. They can sense that something's happening, and they can notice that there's some tension in the family. They can notice that there's a difference in the atmosphere, and they might not understand why, because nobody is telling them what is going on. So if we tell them what is going on, that can relieve some pressure from them. When we do talk about divorce with children, especially if they're a little younger, they can think that it was their fault, that it might be that they were not a good kid or that they did something specifically that made their parents divorce. But also, sometimes children think that their parents don't love them anymore and that they will be abandoned. And I would like you to keep in mind that these things are something that your child might think about when you talk about divorce with them. So in general, how to do it, how to break these news to the child. So first and foremost, sit together with your spouse and think about what you want to tell your child, rehearse what you want to say, prepare yourselves for the questions you think your child might ask, and find out the answers for them. Present the idea of divorce as something factual, so without blaming one or the other, and as a mutual decision. And also, it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to have a lot of details. It's enough to say, yes, mommy and daddy, for instance, are just not seeing eye to eye, and you've noticed that we've been fighting a lot, and we just don't think we can be together anymore. And that is a good explanation. You don't have to go very deep into that. What is very important in these moments is to, first of all, make the child know that this is a final decision, and also that it is not their fault, to be supportive, and to let them speak about how they feel about this situation, about the divorce, and let them ask questions. If your child asks something that you don't have an answer to, it is perfectly okay to say that you don't know and that it is something that you can discuss and think about. And finally, provide your child with a lot of assurance. Tell them that they are loved, that it is not their fault, and that this has nothing to do with them, that you and your partner are still going to love them unconditionally, no matter what. And I would also like to leave you with that even though we see breaking the news of divorce as something that's done once, it does not have to be a one-time thing. You can come and revisit this topic with your child throughout the divorce process to see how they're doing, if they have more questions, and to reassure them again that you still love them. So when it comes to divorce, there tends to also be some tension in some families, and sometimes it happens that we either say negative things about the other partner, or we say, start arguing with each other, and that happens. However, when it happens in front of the child, they can feel like they're being either caught in the middle, or that they have to dislike one parent to be loved by the other one. And if they hear one parent privately talking badly about the other parent, the child might feel that they are also bad because they know I'm one part mom and I'm one part dad. And if they talk badly about that other parent, that means that a part of me is also bad. So what to do? It is recommended that it is okay if you're feeling frustrated and if you're feeling angry. However, it is something that your child doesn't have to listen to. And it is a good idea to find someone you trust, a friend of yours, a family member, or even a professional, or someone else you can talk to, vent to, and work through the emotions that you are feeling. However, if it does happen, it is not the end of the world. It is okay. Reassure your child that you love them. Work on the relationship that you have. It happens. So I named this next part, who do you want to spend the summer with? And it is about making decisions which are usually connected to spending holidays, for instance, together, what the Christmas holidays are going to look like, what the summer holidays are going to look like. And when we ask such a question to the child, it is okay. However, sometimes they tend to feel like they're responsible for making the decision. So if they say, oh, I want to spend the summer with dad, that means that if they say that they made that decision and that they're abandoning the other parent, which can be quite hard for a child. And I like to use this quote from Emery, and it says, how many children would go to school if parents would let the children decide? So children like to play, and most children would choose play over school. However, we as parents are the ones making the decision for the child to go to school every day. And the same thing is with spending, for instance, the summer holidays. Even though a child has a preference for something, it is the decision of the adult and of the parents to make the final decision. So what to do here? Well, there's a difference between preference and decision making. It is completely fine to ask your child what they want. Maybe they do have a preference, but make it clear for them that you're asking for their preference, but it is the decision of you and the other parent in the end. This way, you're evaluating their opinion, but you're also relieving them from the idea of having responsibility for making this decision. Also, consistency and routine are key. That is true whether you're going through divorce or not. Children thrive on consistent parenting and on having routine. It makes them feel like they're in a stable family and a stable surrounding, and that their needs are met there. So what to do? Well, what you can do is try to minimize changes. So make as little changes as possible. Try to maintain the routines that you had, traditions and rituals. For instance, if it was normal for your child to do homework between lunch and dinner, and then right before dinner, you would check on their homework, keep that going. If you used to eat together, do that. So bedtime stories after dinner, if that is something you've been doing, try to maintain that. It gives the child a sense of stability. However, even though I said try to minimize changes, divorce comes with changes very often, and there's nothing wrong with that. When there are things changing, for instance, you now don't have enough money to continue with your child's extracurricular activities, or now you have to move, the child will have to change schools. That is what is happening, and these are the things we cannot avoid. And what we can do there to help our child is to have a conversation about it, to prepare them for these changes, to not make them abrupt, so that they can know that they are going to expect something change. Also, yes, as I said before, it is important to keep your parenting consistent. So if your child goes to school every day, encourage keeping that. So your child is still going to school every day. If there was a certain behavior that had a certain consequence if it is being done, okay, keep that as well. Just because there's a divorce going on and it can be taxing emotionally, that doesn't mean that we have to get rid of the stability and consistency of our parenting. That does not mean that we don't respect the child, and that does not mean that we don't love them. Those two things are completely different. Also, I have been talking about the ideas of parenting plans. So in some countries, it is legally required to create a parenting plan. In some countries, it is advised to do so. But a parenting plan is basically a plan that you create with another parent. And it can have topics such as I said, so discipline, what is acceptable, what isn't, what is the consequence for certain behaviors. Also, there's a lot of decisions that you can work on together. So it can be, for instance, what school your child is going to go through after they finish kindergarten. That's a decision that parents need to make, and that is something you two need to discuss. It can also be in terms of payments. So who is going to pay for school supplies? Who is going to pay for the schooling? Who is going to pay for the trip they're going on to next month? Who is going to pay for extracurricular activities, healthcare? There's a lot of things that you can discuss in that area as well. And it can also be useful to think of what you two will do if there comes to a disagreement that you cannot solve. You can find a friend or a relative who could be objective in this situation, or you can also go to a professional such as a mediator and discuss it there. And this plan is of course not set in stone. You can always revisit it. For instance, today is the 2nd of June, and I can say, okay, let's revisit this in 2 months, so on the 2nd of August. So then you meet together again, and then you can see what you've written before, if there's things you want to change in that list. And last but not least, and I think it goes without saying, but at the same time, I think it is too important not to be said, spend some quality time with your child. I know that the period of divorce, both from the decision to going through the divorce to post-divorce life and adjusting to this new atmosphere, is really intense and it is challenging. But try to make time for organizing fun activities with your child. But also you can be spontaneous with it sometimes. It can be certain activities that your child enjoys, but it can also be activities that you both enjoy. For instance, if you like painting and your child absolutely loves doing stuff with watercolors, make that your own thing. It's going to get both of you closer together. And it is also going to give both you and your child a relief from stress, from the negative emotions. It's going to be kind of like a small vacation for you two. Also, yes, show your child that you love them and that you value them. Show them that you respect them, that you think that they're unique, that they are good the way they are, that they are valuable, that they are important to you. Hug them, cuddle them, tickle with them, whatever you want to create this closeness with your child. Also, give them space to express their feelings and give them space to express their worries. The divorce process is taxing both on you and your child, and maybe your child is not feeling very comfortable coming with these emotions and with these worries that they're having. So it might be a good idea to have a little heart-to-heart and see and ask them, okay, how are you feeling about all of this going on? But if they don't want to talk about it, it is okay. You don't have to pressure them into doing so. You can tell them, it's okay, maybe you don't have anything to tell me right now, but if there is anything that you want to share with me, I will be here and I will listen and support you. Here, it can also be a good idea to give your child some kind of a divorce book that is created for children, which can maybe be a good conversation starter for both of you. Also, children can be quite curious, and it happens outside of the divorce, especially if they're young. They're curious and they want to explore the world, and it can be a lot to take in sometimes, but try to be there, listen to them, and value their questions and not judge them, but try to answer them and just give them the space to be curious, be playful, and be interested in the world that they live in. And last but not least, I would like to encourage you to encourage your child to spend time with the other parent. I know it might sound a bit silly, but sometimes, especially if we're not in good relations with the other parent, we can think, no, but why would they go to the other parent's house? Like, he doesn't deserve to spend time with my child. However, if the child had a good relationship with the other parent before the divorce, there's a very high chance that they are missing the other parent and they want to continue having the relationship with the other parent. I would like to tell you that the fact that you are listening to this presentation and the fact that you've come so far in this presentation already tells me that you care about your child and that you are here because you want to put your child's first. You want to put their needs first and you want to put their well-being first. And even though it might be hard sometimes, because I can see that in you, I think you're already doing a good job. I would like to leave you with some resources that you might find useful. These two books, The Truth About Children and Divorce and Making Divorce Easier on Your Child, it has a lot of tips and ideas and explanations about different aspects of divorce. The AAML model for a parenting plan. This is a parenting plan model used in the United States when it comes to divorce. So I mentioned some tips for creating a parenting plan, but this has some additional things you might find useful. And the last one is Helping Child Understand Divorce. Here you can find different ways of how to explain the idea of divorce to children of various ages and how they might feel about it. And also there's tips on which books you can read as a parent. Some of them are included here. And also the books for children on divorce that you can use. And these are my references in case you're interested. And the only thing I can say is thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Tena. I was keeping notes all the time from what you were saying. So many things, so many useful advice in there. I keep three things that I would like to mention here from your presentation. The first one is what you said in the beginning, that you can be happily in a happy relationship, even though you're divorced, instead of being unhappy in a marriage that is not fulfilling anymore. And I have seen in my experience many wonderful couples that they are not together anymore and they're divorced. And these couples used to have a terrible relationship when they used to be together. So you can be wonderfully divorced instead of being terribly married. And that, of course, reflects to the children. That, of course, is projected to the children. That's something that they feel. And sometimes we do ask this question, like, what about the children? I'm staying because of the children. We ask that question. We doubt, we are scared to making the step and taking a divorce and stepping out of a marriage that doesn't work because we're thinking of the children. But for sure, the children will go through this stressful period of the divorce, but eventually in the long term, they would have a more happy family to live in because everybody will be calmer. Everybody will be away from triggers and conflicts and misunderstandings and fights all the time. So I think we should see it in the other way around. We are actually giving our children a chance to be happier when we're taking a divorce, if nothing else has worked. I'm not taking that everybody, let's take a divorce, but if nothing else has worked, if we have tried with a partner and it doesn't work, and it's been, too long in this situation, then it serves, of course, both the children and the parents if they make this step. The second thing that I keep from what he said was be consistent with your parenting. And that's a word, the first word that came to my mind is guilt. Usually because we're feeling guilty because of the divorce, we tend to compromise, we tend to change some things that would be very black and white before the divorce, like we wouldn't allow it, now we are allowing it. And all this is, of course, because of the guilt. We are feeling guilty because we are going through a divorce and we're putting the children through a divorce. So in these cases, it's more helpful if we work with the guilt rather than working with the parenting. We have to deal with how we feel about that, why we feel so bad about putting our children through this process. And the third thing that I'm keeping from your presentation is that the divorce may be irreversible and it will not change. However, the damage is not irreversible. Yes, everybody is going through this pain, through the divorce, the parents, the children, the family, the extended family, but eventually things will get better. This is a second chance for everybody, not only for the parents, but for everybody to find happiness and peace in the family. So thank you very much for this presentation. What I'm going to do before we hear any questions from the people that joined is I'm going to stop the recording in case somebody wants to share something personal so that it will not be in the recording.